If you've ever felt like you're stuck in a loop of anxiety or self-sabotage, despite your best efforts, the problem isn't your willpower, it's your programming. Today, we're looking at how we rewire the subconscious patterns that keep us small so you can finally step into the life of calm and confidence. Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Dyer, and today I'm looking forward to a conversation about something that touches nearly everyone's life at some point, the hidden power of the subconscious mind. We often think we're in the driver's seat, but beneath the surface, there is old patterns, beliefs that dictate how we react to stress, fear, and success. Our guest today understands this better than most because he has had to find it for himself. Just for anyone listening, this conversation is here to educate and open up possibilities. If you're dealing with depression, anxiety, trauma, or medication decisions, please speak with a qualified health professional who understands your situation. Craig Meriwether is a subconscious transformation expert, clinical hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner who has dedicated his life to understanding the mind after his own long battle with depression and anxiety. Since the age of 14, Craig has lived with a heavy emotional burden that sparked a long quest to find ways to regain control and reset the nervous system. Today, he helps people clear up deep-seated emotional blocks, trauma, and self-sabotage by working through the subconscious level where change actually happens. Craig works with high performers facing massive pressure through his ACE Any Test program or helping individuals heal through spiritual hypnotherapy, and Craig is known for his ability to translate complex neurological patterns into simple, life-changing shifts. He brings unique blend and clinical expertise and deeply lived experience to the table. Craig, welcome to the Champion
Yeah.
Mindset Collective podcast.
Thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to talk with you for a while now, so I'm want to dive in. This is going to be an interesting
Yes,
conversation.
well, and likewise, it's something that I'm very passionate about as well and interested in. So let's kick into it. So before we go into that, tell us about your journey.
Sure. Well, yeah, you mentioned a little bit in the introduction. I was struggling with depression and anxiety for a long time, but really kind of volume knobs on it all got turned up in the teenage years. And this is the 1980s. I graduated high school in 1985. And, there's no internet back then. There's not even the SSRI drugs, Prozac or anything. It's really just whatever, talk therapists you might find in, the phone book, Yellow Pages, or, a book you might find in the library or the bookstore. Certainly when you're 14, 15, 16-year-olds, you're not asking your friends at lunchtime, what to recommend a good talk therapist or anything. So, is this something I struggle with? I just assumed that's the way people felt, or this the way I was going to feel. And I get these glimmers of peace and calm and happiness, or the rays of sunlight through the dark clouds, but they're kind of fleeting. And as I moved into my 20s, I really made a concerted effort to want to get better because I could see it here and there, sense it here and there. And in the 1990s, listeners might remember, it was a kind of big resurgence of the personal growth, personal development movements, help movement. Tony Robbins was becoming super popular in his books, The Giant Within. Oprah kind of switched the format of her show and became the Oprah Winfrey that everybody kind of knows about in terms of being that positive person looking to help people grow and learn and develop as humans. And so there's this big resurgence, maybe the second wave or third wave of the personal development movement. And so I dived into that because I thought, well, maybe this will provide some answers. There's also, as we move along in the 1990s, the internet started coming out, email started coming out, these new things called blog posts, and you can get on to discussion forums and ask questions about stuff as the SSRI drugs like Prozac and other things are coming out, and the discussion opens up. You actually could hear discussions on talk shows, on the news, on the Oprah Winfrey Show. You could discuss it online. You could discuss it with your doctor. You could discuss it at parties and networking. Oh yeah. And what was interesting about it was that you realize, oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. I'm not this damaged, broken person and nobody, I'm the only one who's ever experiencing this and nobody understands it. There's so many people were struggling with this. And one of the things that kept being brought up in terms of, at the end of a book or an article in a magazine or a blog post or something, there'd be like, here's the 5 ways to change your life. Here's the 5 things you can do starting today to help kind of create healing and new patterns and beliefs you have about yourself. And one of them was always hypnotherapy. The other 4 would be different, but one of them was always hypnotherapy as a way to tap into that healing power of the subconscious mind. And so I started using it, found somebody I could work with, and I created some deep healing work. And as I kind of moved throughout my life, I kind of slowly kind of moved my way into this more healing work until eventually kind of as a big pivot in life, later in life, kind of the, not so much a midlife crisis, but just, how can I help give back? And this just fascinates me, this ability to tap into the power of subconscious mind. So I went to this great school, Hypnotherapy Academy of America. It was this in-person school where you went to really train in depth in this work. 500 hours
Mm,
of this work. It's 2.5 months. It's 10 weeks, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Really intensive education to learn how to do this on top of all the continuing education and conferences and classes and things since then. Because I think, to me, in the work I do for myself, and as I've worked with others, this is an extraordinarily powerful way of creating change in life. And so that's a kind of a quick little 3 minute or so introduction to me over the last 40 years, 45 years.
mm.
So it's kind of a slow drip in terms of finding healing for myself. But this is one of the things that works extraordinarily well. There's all sorts of different tools out there.
Mm.
There's 8 billion people here on Earth, and we're all dealing with something, and maybe in a sort of different way. And so what's nice is all these different tools, whether it's talk therapy or EDMR or something like hypnotherapy or acupuncture or a yoga class or a massage or something. There's
Mm.
all these different tools and techniques to help with the healing process, and maybe they all get combined in some sort of way. But what I've always found fascinating in my life and just the interest in this work in terms of the subconscious mind and creating that placebo effect, instead of tricking you into the placebo effect by pretending this is real medication, only it's really a sugar pill, to trick your mind into healing yourself. Let's just do it on purpose. And that's where a
Mm.
lot of these tools and techniques under the umbrella term of hypnotherapy come in.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been the awareness back in the 80s and pre-90s of what was going on, right? If you just thought that this is what was happening to everyone, or that it
Yeah.
just happened to me, like you said, absolutely, there's been a growth of self-development practices around. So when you were in that space, did you
hmm
feel like you were just fighting against yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that I would say so much as fighting against myself. It was more as of a resignation that this may be the way it is. Because it's sort of like that thing of how do you explain color to someone who's been blind since birth? How do you explain that to somebody? It's sort of like, well, it was like, I don't know any better. So why would I know to reach for something I didn't know was possible to reach for? I just kind of assumed either that I was broken in some way and I didn't know how to fix it, or it's just maybe this is the way everybody is. It seemed like other people were lighter and more at peace and calm and having fun and excited about life, and I just wasn't. I didn't understand that. I didn't know why. And, like a lot of us, especially, listening to these kind of podcasts and episodes that you're dropping is like, we want to find something to help create a better life. And I wanted that. I just didn't understand what it was or how to do it. Other than I just like, I'm kind of hurting and I don't know how to fix it. And nobody else seemed to really understand or care or notice. And so it's like, what do you do? Do you jump up and down and wave your arms? Do you just settle into this? Is there something that can be done? And I think that's where a lot of the fascination about the personal development movement, again, because Tony Robbins got super, super popular in the late 80s, early 90s. And so it's like, well, here's something that may be possible to help. These different kind of understandings of how mind works and how healing happens. And it was just, again, kind of a slow drip of understanding that and working with it until I found something that helped me specifically.
Yeah. Was there a specific moment that, when you realized that the traditional thinking wasn't working for you, it wasn't gonna be enough for you?
I don't know that there was a specific moment. The one thing that always sticks out in my mind, is I went to a pretty small school, high school. I think there was like 100 kids, 90 kids in my graduating high school class. And there was a counselor at school. There's the principal and the vice principal and all the teachers and then the counselor and the this and the that. And to me, a counselor was, oh, that's like a talk therapist kind of person. And I think that what they meant by counseling was like, oh, they'll help you decide which college and university to go to and what career path to get into due to your interests and what you're good at doing and all that, but just like, oh, if you need an appointment to see the counselor or something. And so I thought this is, I don't know, junior high, not junior high, I mean, junior year of high school. So, 16, 17 years old, whatever that was for me. And I remember writing a note that you could like slip in, like, hey, I need to figure out if I want to go to this school or that school, or if I should be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. And you make an appointment with the counselor. And I wrote something in there that like I need help. I'm depressed. I'm anxious,
Mm,
and never heard back from them. Just ghosted.
wow.
And that always like I was like, okay, well, I guess I can't even get help from a counselor.
Mm,
And I think that really kind of gave me the impression I should hide this more of what I'm going through and
mm,
pretend that that is not happening because well, it's like if a counselor can't even help me. And even then after I was like, well, maybe it's not that kind of counselor. Maybe it's a counselor like I should have asked like what my what university I should go to. Even if like that was the case, which probably was, why wouldn't they have reached out? It's like, hey, I'm not that kind of counselor, but let me find you some help. Or I know somebody you can talk to, or just hey, let's talk anyway. I'm not a professional, but tell me what you're going through. Maybe I can help direct you into the right the right person to talk with or the whatever. And there's just like they just probably read it, crumpled up the paper, thought maybe I was joking or something. I don't know.
yeah, either that or they were like, "Okay, well, hey, this is something that maybe he should be talking to with his parents or something,"
Yeah.
and yeah, it's not something that we
Or yeah,
but
or it's
yeah,
like, oh hey, I want to do a parent teacher conference. Let's
yeah,
talk about this.
yeah,
Or something. And that was, of course, some 40 years ago, 45 years ago. Oh, who knows what was really going on or what happened. But in my mind, whatever, however old I was, 17 years old, I was like, oh, I'd better not talk about this anymore because it's embarrassing or nobody cares or it's, something to hide. So that's what I did. And that's where, a lot of them said, well, I can get a book and go read that on my own and try to figure this out myself. And it wasn't until later, maybe even like a decade later, where it's like, okay, well, one of the best things you can do, according to a lot of these articles that I was reading and getting a hold of in books and things, was, oh, okay, well, one of the great ways of being able to tap into the power of your subconscious mind is hypnotherapy. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, maybe I can look for somebody who can help. Because it kind
mm.
of turned me off for a while. If counselors can't even help me, then what's the point?
Did you know anything about the subconscious mind, or did you no?
No, just whatever. I mean, probably I was introduced to all that certainly in at school, college, psychology 101 and whatever that entails in terms of understanding about ego and the id and the super ego and all that stuff. And the theories of Freud and Carl Jung and all that kind of fun stuff. But in terms of maybe understanding more about how you can use it for, I think
Mm,
that kind of Tony Robbins personal development kind of work that he and other people were putting out there and Oprah was talking about and all this stuff. Well, that was my kind of introduction to it. Those were the beginning stages. That was my 101 classes into understanding more about how you can create change. Was all that
yeah,
work in the early 90s that was coming out.
yeah, yeah. So for people who hear the word hypnosis, and think that stage shows or
All right.
clucking like a chicken. What is really hypnotherapy?
Yeah, that's unfortunate because I think that turns a lot of people off to even wanting to investigate it because they see a movie or a TV show and they see the Las Vegas shows or the comedy club shows and it's weird and strange. But
Mm,
what therapeutic hypnosis, it's not about taking over control. It's not mind control. It's not brainwashing. It's not turning you into a zombie or Manchurian candidate to assassinate the prime minister or whatever. It's about actually getting back control, because a lot of times people are coming to this work because they're dealing with anxiety or overwhelming anger or resentment, some others, maybe even physical pain, that they've been to the
Mm,
doctors and they've been to the physical therapist and they've done all this stuff and they're still hurting. There seems to be no reasoning behind it. And so they're kind of last hope, which is what I've noticed in a lot of people who are hypnotherapists. Notice that we're kind of on the bottom of the list. And because we're the, I don't know, the voodoo doctors or something, witch doctors. And it's like, well, I got nothing else but go to the witch doctor and the hypnotherapist. And so they come to a hypnotherapist. But understand this is more about giving you back that control, because if you're reacting to triggers in life, known or unknown, maybe you don't even know what the triggers are, and all of a sudden you just feel really anxious, or somebody feels really angry or resentful or afraid. You
mm,
don't know why. Well, it sounds like you're already out of control. So what this does is give you back that control, because you're changing those instructions on how to keep yourself safe. You're changing the patterns and the behaviors and the mindset around yourself, and whether you're worthy or valuable, and whether you have anything to offer to the world. You
mm,
may have been told for many, many years as a child that maybe you weren't, and you accepted that because you were a child and you didn't know any better. It's like, well, why don't we change that? That's totally up to you. So it's giving you back that control. And unfortunately, they use it as a trope and a cliche to move the plot forward in a movie or a TV show. But I understand that's a fictionalized thing. It's a fictionalized story. What hypnosis is a brainwave state. And the kind of famous brainwave states we learned about back in school were beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And it's literally just how fast your brain is processing information. And so when somebody's in the present moment, they're focused on the task at hand, like we're having this conversation, you and me, Anthony, and we're focused on what's going on. We're probably firing brain cells at about 18 cycles per second. And so we're in the beta brainwave state. We're in this conscious awareness of the present moment. But let's say, you're like at a boring meeting at work and it has nothing to do with your department or what you have to do, or you're back in high school, maybe high school math class or something. Maybe you're driving home and all of a sudden your mind drifts away. Like you're driving home and you don't remember the last 1 or 2 minutes, and you find yourself in your driveway or at the parking spot at the store or something. And your mind drifted off. You don't remember driving the last, or maybe you miss your exit or something. Like, well, your subconscious mind took over the driving, like it knows how to walk down the street or knows how to tie your shoes and all that stuff. Well, it took over driving because you've probably driven wherever you went to hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times if you lived there a lot of years. Well, your subconscious mind took over, your conscious mind drifted off, and you started thinking about something maybe in the future. You got people coming over for the weekend, or you got that big report due on Tuesday, or you got to run the meeting on Thursday. You got to get the PowerPoint done because you got the conference. You start thinking about something else, maybe the vacation you took last year, and maybe, oh boy, if we did that again, I'd want to get the same hotel. And you start thinking about all this stuff. Well, you altered your state of consciousness while you're driving, while being in that meeting, while being bored back in high school math class. Let's say, and I don't mean to put math teachers on blast, I'm sorry. Let's say I'm back in a class in high school I didn't really like, I wasn't into it, but I got to take notes. I'm just going to be on the final exam. I got to do well in this class. So I'm taking notes and I'm really paying attention, but it's boring. And so I just start staring out the window and my mind drifts off. It floats away. The teacher's still talking and everything's still going on, but I'm not paying attention. I have no idea what's happening because I've moved in a more daydreamy state. I started thinking about the weekend or something else. And then I've literally slowed down how fast my brain is processing information. So I went from 18, 20 cycles per second in the beta brainwave state down to 12 cycles per second in the alpha brainwave state. And then maybe like my eyes get kind of heavy and tired, and I start nodding off. I'm not really asleep, but I'm not really awake either. I'm in the theta brainwave state. Now I'm firing about 6 cycles per second. So I'm in that hazy, dreamy state. And I can't really tell where I am because I'm in the sleepy, not really asleep, but not really awake state. In a minute, I might be actually asleep in the delta brainwave state, firing at 1.5 cycle per second. But the teacher sees me, says, "Hey, Craig, why don't you come up here and do the problem on the board?" And so I jolt away and I look around and everybody's staring at me and I'm embarrassed because, everybody's staring at me now and laughing at me. And I don't know how to do the problem on the board. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this because I wasn't paying attention. The teacher was talking, but I wasn't paying attention. I don't know what to do. So now I'm stressed and I'm firing about 30 cycles per second in a high beta brainwave state. I've just altered my state of consciousness. Being
mm,
bored back in high school math class, I've altered my state of consciousness 3 or 4 times just in about 7, 8 minutes. It's a natural state our mind moves in and out of. Well, that alpha, theta, delta brainwave state is what's collectively known, the fancy term, is the hypnagogic trance state. It's a normal, natural state of your brain processing information at different levels of speed, basically. And what we do with therapeutic hypnosis is just move you into that alpha brainwave state on purpose. That's where
Mm.
that trope and that cliche of swinging the pocket watch, you are getting sleepy. That's why we're just trying to be a boring high school class or a boring meeting at work or being bored standing in line at the store. And it's cliched and a trope and things, and we don't actually really do it. But I mean, some people do, I guess. But we're just trying to relax you to the point of moving into that more daydreamy state of the alpha
Mm.
brainwave state. As you quiet down that conscious level of mind, the analytical, logical level of mind, you can access that subconscious. And so, back this more modern day version of this work, and you could probably go back and have a really interesting conversation about where this work started, maybe back in the sleep chambers or temples or the mystery schools or the healing centers back in Egypt or Greece or something way back when. Maybe they were using these more trance states to help the healing process. But in terms of this more modern day movement of therapeutic work, started maybe somewhere around the early 1800s. And there's a doctor, Dr. James Esdale. He's a surgeon. He was working in India. And back then all around the world, not just India, but you didn't have fancy hospitals or fancy anesthesia. If you had to have your leg amputated, you're biting down on a stick. Maybe if you're lucky, you got a blow to the head to knock you unconscious. Well, he started using a deep trance state he learned about. And he put people so far into trance, it looked like they're in a coma. It took him about an hour to get them into this deep trance state of this coma-like state. And then he could cut people open and take out tumors. He could do amputations and people wouldn't move. They wouldn't be bothered. You could sew them back up to deal with injuries and war wounds and all sorts of things. Well, he learned this technique and practiced with it. And he took it back to England. He started
Mhm.
talking about it and working with people with it. Another doctor, Dr. James Bard, started working with it and wanting a word to describe it in his writings and to discuss it with colleagues and things. He decided to name this very deep trance state, this coma-like state. He decided to name it after the Greek god of sleep. Greek god of sleep is hypnos. So he called it hypnosis. And so this deep trance state actually kind of became this umbrella under which all these other different kind of altered states of consciousness of the alpha, theta, delta brainwave state were kind of encompassed under this umbrella of this term. Therapeutic hypnosis is using this state of altered consciousness to do deep healing work. And so it's nothing in and of itself new. I mean, Sigmund Freud was a hypnotherapist. He
Mm.
was training as a hypnotherapist in the late 1800s, two schools of hypnotherapy in Vienna, and he was at one of them. But Sigmund Freud had a speech impediment. And if anybody's ever experienced a hypnotherapy session, the hypnotherapist talks a lot. There's a lot of guiding and facilitating, and it's difficult if you have a speech impediment. And he was also seemingly kind of annoyed that someone would go into a hypnotherapist's office with a problem and walk out without the problem. He wanted to understand why there was a problem. He wanted to analyze and understand the shadow self and why people do these things, not only to themselves and to other people. And so he started developing this new kind of therapy, which kind of translated into talk therapy, where he would analyze people. He'd have them talk, and he'd remain quiet, write notes, and analyze people over time. One of his letters, when he was talking about this stuff, he wrote that this is not a poor man's therapy because it would take hundreds of hours to figure somebody else.
Mhm.
While he's figuring it all out, a lot of people know that he was doing copious amounts of cocaine to make himself feel better and to make his patients feel better because they were just talking about their problems. It wasn't like really fixing anything. And so it helped them feel better, and he prescribed cocaine to them. Probably OD'd one of his patients because one of them died because OD'd on cocaine that he had prescribed. And this work is not new work. It's not like somebody figured it out like 2 years ago. This has been going on for quite a
Mhm.
while, depending on where you start counting. But it's been going on about, at least 125 years, if not, 225 years. And at least a modern uh, day version of this work. And it's very powerful because what we're doing is tapping into the placebo effect. I mean, people probably know the placebo effect. They've heard of it. It's not a trick. It's not fake. It's the mind healing the body. And the reason why pharmaceutical company, let's say, is doing research on a new high blood pressure medication. Well, they have to have that control group that gets the sugar pill because they know they're going to accidentally influence people to heal themselves. So they have to account for that. So the brochure about the research, the website where you go to sign up, to be a part of the research. When you go to the research office, the way the research office looks, the way it smells, the white lab coats people may be wearing, the clipboard and pen you use to sign the waiver to be a part of the study. This is all influencing people to heal themselves.
mm,
Mind healing the body, the subconscious mind healing the body. And so they have to account for that. And so they have the control group. The people get the sugar pill. Let's say 30% of the people with the sugar pill get better. Well, with the real medication, let's say 40% get better. Well, they actually have to subtract 30% because maybe they influenced those people to get better as well. And the medication had nothing to do with it. Mind healed them. Well, that means that really only 10% got better. And that's good enough. And they'll put it on the market at $80 a pill. But more people got better healing themselves through mind. But there's no big $1 billion payout at the end of the year, because you can't patent somebody's subconscious mind. You can't copyright somebody's subconscious mind. So, well, let's develop a pill instead. But more people, healed themselves in that instance, and my, made up example. And that's because people heal themselves. Is that there's a quote by William James, one of the kind of pioneers of modern psychotherapy, and he said to prove that all crows are not black, you only need one white crow. And so even if you're doing an experiment and like 90% of the people get better on the medication and only 1% got better, there was 100 people in the control group and 1%, I mean, one person got better. All right, well, there's your one white crow. That means
mm,
people can get better through mind. And so what hypnotherapy is about is tapping into your potential to do that. Now, there's 8 billion of us. There's not one size fits all, and there's all sorts of issues that people deal with throughout their lives in terms of how they grew up and maybe the trauma or the abuse they went through or just the suggestions that they received about themselves through teachers and bullies at school and parents and whatever. And so it's not like a one size fits all. And that's why under the umbrella term of hypnotherapy, there's all sorts of different tools and techniques to use depending on what the person wants to work on. If you have something like, let's say, like fear of flying, that's pretty specific. But the reasoning behind why somebody has a fear of flying may be different. So there may be different tools and techniques needed to help that person. Of course, somebody maybe has flown for 30 years because of business and just
mm,
travel and things. And yet one really extraordinarily frightening flight over the Atlantic because of all the terrible turbulence. I was like, okay, I'm not flying anymore. And I worked with somebody who had never been on an airplane, had never been to an airport, but her parents, before she was even born, lived near a really terrible airplane accident that, if people remember of a certain age, may remember that one in San Diego that crashed into a neighborhood and took out a big neighborhood. And they lived near there and saw the aftermath of this apocalyptic scene. And it was very disturbing to them and very traumatic for them because they knew people in that part of the neighborhood. And they would talk about it. And as
yeah,
she grew up after the fact, as she was born and then grew up, she heard them talking about it. And that was her fear of flying. So that's very different than the person who flew for 30 years. And then because of one incident, very frightening incident, has fear of flying. Her fear of flying is very different. Same specific issue, but maybe different reasoning behind it. So that's where, working with somebody, certainly there are recordings on YouTube and I guess Spotify and SoundCloud and all those places where you can do hypnotherapy, visualization exercises and different techniques. But sometimes you need that specific to get that kind of detail in order to create the deeper healing work. And so that's why,
yeah,
working with somebody can be so powerful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the subconscious mind and how much of our daily life actually is shaped by the patterns that we're not even aware of.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting conversation. In terms of that, and this could probably be an 8-hour conversation about just that one question you just asked, and still not having any real definite answers. Might have more questions than answers by the end of it.
mm,
But in terms of how you move through life, it's all about the instructions that were installed and planted within the subconscious mind, maybe on purpose, maybe accidentally, maybe a week ago, maybe 50 years ago, maybe when you're a child. And these instructions sort of like computer code. And if somebody's writing an accounting program for their business and they put in there 2 plus 2 equals 5,
mm,
well, I mean, that's what you're going to get out. That's the equation. That's the algorithm that's going to influence all the other equations that come out of there. And it doesn't matter how much you get frustrated and slam your fist on your keyboard out of frustration. Doesn't matter how much you vent to your friends of how unfair it is or go to counseling. Doesn't matter. Maybe you take a Sharpie and a marker and write 2 plus 2 equals 4 on your computer screen. It's not until you go into the computer code, look for that code, and look at this. Oh yeah, 2 plus 2 equals 5. That's weird. That's strange. Amend it, edit it, delete it, write in new code. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Press save. Now your equations equal out. It can be very, very powerful work. And really, a lot of this work is not so much hypnotizing you, but dehypnotizing you. Because you may be hypnotized to think that you have no value or you're worthless or you can't do anything right. You may be hypnotized to think that money is elusive to you because you just can't, you're not a great earner or you can't provide for your family. You may have hypnotized yourself to be so stressed that there's lower back pain or something. What if you dehypnotize yourself from those instructions and those suggestions that maybe got put in there accidentally and unconsciously, maybe through a traumatic event someone experienced as a child, and you dehypnotize yourself from that and put in different instructions. And so the subconscious mind, its main job is to keep you safe and protected, which doesn't necessarily mean happy and successful. It means protected, it means safe, it means your survival is paramount and key. Now, of course, the subconscious mind is running your digestive system, it's running your immune system. It's, you get a cut on your finger, it's healing that, a scrape on the knee, all these things you don't have to think about. Taking a day-old baby to that of an adult. Again, all things you don't have to think about powerfully of, growing hair, growing fingernails, all this kinds of, eliminating cells in your body to grow new cells and divide those cells. All this stuff is happening without your conscious awareness, all being run by that unconscious part of mind. Is holding on to habits like tying your shoes and walking down the street and riding a bicycle and all that kind of stuff. But its main job is to keep you safe and protected. And one of the ways it does this is by holding on to old hurt and pain as a way of remembering that you don't want to experience that ever again. So sort of like as this filing cabinet, in the top drawer of the filing cabinet is all these files of hurt and pain and trauma and embarrassment, humiliation and fear and all these things you've gone through, whether maybe recently, like a few weeks ago, to maybe yesterday, all the way to maybe you're 1 or 2 years old.
Mm.
And as you move through your day, as you filter all the information through your 5 senses, what you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, it gets filtered through that filing cabinet. If anything registers one of those files or triggers one of those files as being, hey, this is dangerous, because it sort of looks like that thing that happened 50 years ago, you'll get the warning signals. Now, when somebody pulls a fire alarm in a building, the warning signals go off, the sirens, the strobe lights, warning everybody there's danger, you need to get to safety. Well, we also have a warning system. Instead of sirens, we have feeling states, feeling state of fear, feeling state of anxiety, feeling state of overwhelm or worry or anger. These are all warnings that there is something dangerous in our external environment. Kind of big issue with being human is that the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so, as an example of this is most noticeable if you, Anthony, or the people listening, if you've had this experience, or maybe your kids have had this experience, having a nightmare in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter how realistic that nightmare is. Maybe a veteran having a PTSD dream about being back in combat in the front lines, the horror of that, even though their war was 40 years ago. Or maybe something super ridiculous and dumb and impossible, like a cheeseburger's chasing down the street throwing coconuts at your head. It's dumb. It's never going to happen. But in that instant, even though in both scenarios, the person's safe and sound and comfortable in bed under the covers, sound asleep, the mind thinks they're under attack by a cheeseburger throwing coconuts at them. And it has a shoot first, ask questions later. So it's like, well, that's weird. That would never happen. It's like, no, you're under attack. And it'll literally change your physiology in deep sleep. Brain will start creating the adrenaline and cortisol, those hormones, jumping in the bloodstream. The heart starts racing to get it to the big muscle of your arms to fight, big muscle of your legs to escape, turning down the power of the immune system, the digestive system, other systems to get that energy to the big muscles to fight and escape and to armor yourself. You start breathing, shallowly to get quick oxygen. Get so much cortisol in your brain that it wakes you up, consciously wants you aware to look for that danger, all because of cheeseburgers chasing you down the street. So you can imagine what's happening in your waking world. If that's what can happen in deep sleep and with something so ridiculous. So that's the subconscious mind. It's this emotionalized part of mind that's trying to keep you safe and protected using the events, situations, or circumstances that you've experienced in the past. Maybe very recently, like yesterday, maybe 50 years ago when you were a little kid. Well, the conscious mind, that's the logical mind, the analytical mind, the mind that creates your goals and creates the plans to achieve those goals, your plan for your day, the plan for your week, your 5-year plan, willpower to go after their plan, all very logical as you analyze your life. Well, what neuroscience says is that conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. Subconscious mind makes up 95% of mind. So when there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind wins every time. That's why none of this has to make any sense. That's why
Mm.
some other therapies, and not to put talk therapy on blast, but just as an example, why some people can find that frustrating, especially even after years of doing talk therapy, is that you're logically trying to find a solution to an emotional
Emotional.
problem.
Yeah.
Maybe that started when you were a child.
Mm.
And maybe as a child going through some trauma or some abuse or some other, intense issue, the best thing you could have done to keep yourself safe as a child was to hide or to keep yourself, hidden or to keep your voice low. Well, that may have been the best thing you could have done to keep yourself safe. Good for you. That was the best thing you could have done. But that's not going to work when you're in your 20s or 30s or 70s or 80s. But nothing's going to change until you change those instructions.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, 2 + 2 = 5 got in there. Maybe that was a useful equation in terms of trying to figure out whatever it is algorithm that person needed to create. But later on, when the business shifted, that doesn't work anymore. Okay, well, change the code. And I don't mean to make it sound so easy and simple, but sometimes it's that easy and simple.
Yeah, it is. It is a program, right? It's a program that we've uh, basically been running for a number of years.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
keep getting
number of
this
decades.
decades, yeah, and we keep getting the same results. So we've got to change the program
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to like put talk therapy on blast. I think that's very helpful, very useful, very healing
Yeah.
and in certain situations. And I think everybody should do it. I think it's great to have a second pair of eyes on just relationships at work or relationships in your life or other things that are going on. It's great to have somebody there to help you analyze logically those situations. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get to the core issue, especially if that's within the
Mm.
unconscious.
Yeah.
And that's where hypnotherapy can be helpful. Again,
Yeah.
it's
And
not like
it's
one's better than the others. It's like, why not have a team?
yeah,
Like the first base coach and the second, the first base coach and the third base coach on a baseball team kind of sound similar, but they do different things.
they do.
As
Yeah.
as the hitting coach and the running coach and the throwing coach and the nutritionalist and the massage therapist and the physical therapist, they're all doing different things. As is the head coach who's doing strategy and the general manager who's running promotions. You need all these people to get you to the World Series to get the championship. So okay, well have a team with you. Go to yoga class, get a massage, do acupuncture, go to a tongue therapist, do EDMR, do hypnotherapy. Have this team around you to become the best person you can be. We just happen to be talking about this unique form of therapy that has some fortunate misconceptions around it. I mean, even
Yeah.
though we talked about something I didn't dive into too much, but real quickly because I know we're kind of running up against time. We talked about the whole cooking like a chicken or these shows where you're dancing like Michael Jackson or singing like Elvis Presley up on stage. They're making you do all this stuff, barking like dogs and quacking like ducks. And understand that everybody up on that stage volunteered to be up there. You can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. And I don't know why people like doing that. It's they want to be star of the show. They want to be part of that experience. They want to have a funny experience to have a video to put on Instagram or TikTok. They want to be silly in front of their friends. And looking at them at the end of the show, they all have a big smile on their face because they had a great time. And when that hypnotist comes, hey everybody, welcome to the show. We're gonna have a great evening. Who are they gonna pick to be up on stage? The introvert in the back of the
Mm.
room, hiding in the shadows, sinking down in their chair, or the extrovert who got there early to sit in the front row to jump up and down and say, pick me, pick me. One of
Yeah.
those two people is going to do a better show.
Yeah.
And even if, like, let's say somebody lost a bet, it's like, well, if you lose, if you get this answer wrong, then you have to later tonight go up on stage and do the hypnosis show we're going to. Even if they did that, okay, well, I guess I lost a bet. I have to go up there and do this strange in front of all these people. They're going to be excused from the stage because they're not going to do a good job. They're going to be nervous. They're going to have stage fright. There's going to be these, 100, 500 people in the audience, all with their phones down and bright lights. They're not going to do a good show. They're going to be excused. That's why when you see those shows, go on YouTube and watch these shows. There'll be like 12, 15 people get invited up because they know maybe 2 or 3 are going to be excused from the show
Mm.
because you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. And this is most noticeable when, like with smoking cessation, one of the most famous things hypnotherapy is known for is helping people quit smoking. You can't make somebody quit smoking if they don't want to quit. Somebody, husband or wife or somebody, makes an appointment and say, well, I'm tired of this smoking and the health implications coming down the line and the money we're spending on this and it just stinks everywhere. It's like I set up an appointment on Thursday at 2 o'clock. You're gonna go quit smoking. Well, the person may come in because their wife or husband is waiting out in the car or something, and say, "Well, I told him I'd come in here, but I don't want to quit. I'm just gonna say this didn't work so I can smoke in the garage." That happened to me like a while ago. And I say, "Okay, well, I can't make them quit smoking because their wife or husband wants them to quit smoking. They don't want to, so I can't make them. Otherwise, I could I could hypnotize my way into the United Nations and hypnotize everybody to create world peace. And I'd be the guy who created world peace. And my birthday would be an international holiday and people would sing
Yeah,
songs of praise to me. I can't, that's not how it works. But if you want to quit smoking, you want to create healing, you want that
yeah,
confidence, yeah, what's possible,
yeah.
you know?
And just going back to what you were saying before, that the emotional mind and the logical mind, like Einstein said, the thought that created the problem cannot solve it.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, it's okay to have a talk therapy and have conversations, but as I guess as long as you're tapping into the emotional mind and dealing with that as well, um,
Yeah.
to a point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why not
yeah,
use own, why not have a bunch of tools in your toolbox? Because,
exactly.
there's some situations that may need a wrench, other situations that need a screwdriver, a hammer, or a blowtorch.
Mm, yeah,
And or a soldering, I don't know. Uh, why not have all these tools at your disposal? Well, it's just fascinating. Again, this isn't magic, and it's not voodoo, and it's not mind control or brainwashing. It's tapping into the placebo effect, tapping into your power to heal yourself. I don't fix anybody. I don't
mm.
analyze anybody. I don't diagnose anybody. I don't prescribe for anybody. Hypnotherapy in and of itself doesn't fix anybody. You fix yourself. That's how
Well,
powerful you are.
you're helping them get into that state, right? And then you're probably talking them through tapping into those emotions or those experiences, and then they end up changing the program
Yeah,
themselves.
you can change the program. Yeah, and we do it in a safe and gentle way. We just don't throw anybody into the deep end of the pool. We do it in a safe and gentle way, but you're allowed to change all that. You're the one, and not to say it was your fault, especially as a child. It's not your fault. It shouldn't have happened. It wasn't fair. And the way that maybe unhealthy instructions get into your subconscious mind in a very traumatic way wasn't your fault, but you're the one who put them in there. Again, it's not to say it was your fault or should have happened. It wasn't fair, but you're the one who put it in there, and that actually becomes very empowering because, well, then you can take them out. You can
Yeah,
change them. You're the one who put them in there, and the information in there may not be accurate. So change the information, and it may be done in a more symbolic and metaphoric way. Just like Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Milton Erickson, Laura Fitzpearls, they all discussed how the subconscious mind speaks to us in metaphor, in symbolism, in dreams, and imagination, and we can speak back to it in metaphor and
yeah,
symbolism and imagination and storytelling. And so that's why a lot of when you maybe listen to recordings, or if anybody's ever experienced hypnosis or a hypnotherapy session, it was like, wow, they had me walk through a beautiful healing space and I went to a waterfall of blue healing energy, and not only washed away the stress and tension like a beautiful shower, but this blue energy moved through me and pushed out all the stress from my
mm,
brain and my mind and from my heart and my lungs and pushed it out the bottom of my feet. Is there a waterfall of blue healing energy? No. But you can imagine that. And just like a cheeseburger throwing coconuts at your head can change your physiology
mm,
into turning on the stress response, the fight or flight response, what else can you do?
yeah,
And so a lot of some of the work is those kind of more imaginative, daydreamy pretending of, well, pretend that this healing energy is cleansing and cleaning. And the subconscious mind was like, okay, yeah, sure. And it'll literally
mm,
change your physiology to
mm,
match what you're thinking.
yeah,
Maybe even if it's in a symbolic way. Another, like with maybe somebody dealing with some trauma or anxiety that needs to be resolved and healed. Well, okay, well, I want you to pretend you're sitting in a movie theater, in the best seat in the house. It's your movie theater. You're the only one there, and up on the screen is that incident, whether it took seconds or it took hours or it took years, maybe through trauma or some other kind of abuse or something. That movie screen is the entire movie of that. And you're sitting in a perfect seat about to watch that movie. I want you to pull yourself out of being there sitting in that seat. I want you to move behind the projection, into the projection booth. So now you're behind that wall, you're looking through that little window at yourself, watching the movie up on a screen. So now you've disassociated from it like 3 times. Because I also want you to make that movie smaller. So now there's a kind of a black frame around it, like you're reframing it. And I want that movie to be, make that movie black and white and gray and make it fuzzy and out of focus. And actually, you know what? Push it 50 yards away from you so it's smaller and make it round. You keep changing it. and change it. And as you do that, you're pulling out the plugs
mm,
of the emotional response you have to what it used to be because you've changed it into something else. Now, it's not amnesia. You're not creating, a forgetfulness. You want to remember a hot pot on the stove will burn your hand. That's wisdom.
mm,
You don't have to keep the hurt and pain of it anymore. And so you may rewind that movie because we all know what a rewound movie looks like. People walking backwards really fast and talking in gibberish. Subconscious mind can't rewind emotion.
yeah,
And so it just gets unplugged, decoupled, you
yeah,
know. And as you do that over and over again, these are the techniques where, well, that's not even close to talk therapy. And yet it creates extraordinarily healing change because in those symbolic metaphoric ways, you are installing new instructions on how
yeah.
to keep yourself safe.
Can we, through meditation, can we get into those states and be able to do that ourselves as well?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, because again, I'm not doing anything to you. And
yeah,
people listening to this may have gone to a hypnotherapy session and just, oh, I couldn't be hypnotized. It didn't work. And I'm one of those people who can't be hypnotized. There's research out there that says 20% of people can't be hypnotized. And I'm one of them because I know I have ADHD and I can't focus. And I went to hypnotherapy and it didn't work. It's like, no, you can be hypnotized. You just didn't want to, maybe unconsciously, but you felt uncomfortable
mm,
in that situation, maybe with the person. I do most of my work over Zoom. Maybe you're uncomfortable in Zoom, maybe in the office with the person. Maybe unconsciously you just weren't ready. Maybe consciously you weren't ready to create that healing right then. And so you did not allow yourself to move into that alpha brainwave state. You're on hyper alert because you felt uncomfortable. Maybe somebody actually has done one of those research things at the universities where they claim that 20% of people can't be hypnotized. It's like, well, it's because you didn't feel comfortable with the people, with or lack of empathy or compassion or whatever the situation was. Like you didn't feel comfortable, so you didn't allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to move in that state. It doesn't mean you can't. It means you took control and decided not to, maybe unconsciously decided not to move into that state at that time and that place.
mm,
It doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you have control. So yeah, you can do this you do it all the time anyway. You do it multiple times a day, every day, at least twice a day when you're going to sleep and waking up. But
yeah,
watching TV puts you in the alpha brainwave state. Being bored at work puts you in the alpha brainwave state. Being bored at school puts you in the alpha brainwave state.
mm,
Standing in line at the store, being bored, driving down the street for the, thousandth time driving home puts you in the alpha brainwave state because you start listening to the music, you start thinking about something else, you know, and you do it all the time. So you can do it, like maybe finding a recording on YouTube or again, Spotify. I don't know if they have it on Spotify or wherever, find recordings of this kind of stuff. You can do it on your own, certainly. And,
yeah,
find a recording where you're standing under this healing waterfall. It's
yeah.
very relaxing and very stress reducing.
One of the things I used to do, and I still do it sometimes, is the reprogramming your mind. Basically, it's a 9-hour track it's on. You can find them on YouTube, and you play it while you sleep, and it takes you out of your different sleep cycles and different, like I said, your brain waves.
Yeah.
And I used to be chronic anxiety, and went through multiple redundancies and restructures, and I used to be chronically anxious about what was going to happen, also with relationships. And I started doing this reprogramming of my mind every night, and it would just be playing while I'm sleeping. After a few weeks, it
Yeah.
changed,
Yeah.
and it reprogrammed those parts of my mind that were triggering to actually going, it's okay. And then also, what helped me was reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yes. I love that book.
That book really changed my life because it was like, in this present moment, I'm okay. There's nothing to worry about. It's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's so important because a lot of people may think, well, maybe it doesn't work because you're asleep, and why would if you're not consciously aware of it, it can't be doing any good. It actually does a lot of good because
Because,
again, that alpha, theta, delta brainwave state is what's known as the hypnagogic trance state, and you've had an experience, no matter how old you are. Listen at this point of when you're listening to this, and you're asleep, and you wake up, maybe because you hear the baby coughing or your
mm,
12-year-old coughing or throwing up because they got sick in the middle of the night. You wake up because of that because it's dangerous. It's a safety thing. Somebody you love and care for is having an emergency. You wake up, you hear the fire truck pull up to the front of your house. You hear the back door creak open at 4 a.m. You smell smoke. You're too hot, you're too cold. You wake up, you have to go to the bathroom. These are all instances where even in deep sleep, your body mind registered something that required you to be consciously awake, and you became awake. Really, of the five senses, what we hear, see, taste, touch, and smell, the only thing that really goes unconscious and asleep is vision. We're still hearing, we're still smelling, we're still sensing temperature. And so again, when the baby cries out or coughs, or the 12-year-old, or gets sick in the middle of the night or something, you're going to wake up. Or the child comes in, mommy, or daddy, you're going to wake up. It was a whoa, 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 so something's happening. So you're hearing all that stuff. So imagine, what if you're hearing in a deep, deep trance state of sleep, the delta brainwave state? What if you're hearing positive
Mm,
suggestions, affirmations, and instructions to whatever it is you're looking for, more confidence or more strength and power, more peace and calm, or whatever the thing is, the ability to easily and effortlessly, safely and gently release peace, not release peace, release anxiety and stress, and create peace and calm. What if you're listening to, recordings while you sleep? What if you're doing it while you're washing the dishes, or mowing the lawn, or changing the oil in the car, or cleaning out the garage? Not
yeah,
necessarily focused on the recording, but washing the dishes and dealing with the things in the house. In the background is a lovely recording with some lovely music maybe underneath it in the background. It's not like blasting. You don't have to have it on a stereo level of volume level of 10, but it's in the background. You're picking it up and you're
yeah,
hearing it. Yeah.
yeah. And, also recording your own voice and
Yeah. How
playing it back
powerful
to
would that
yourself.
be?
It's way powerful. I've done
Yeah,
that
it's
before.
one thing to have me, or you, Anthony, or somebody make a recording and say, you are powerful, you are amazing, you are great. What if you did your own voices, that I am
Exactly.
powerful? How more powerful
Yes.
your subconscious mind install that stuff?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's something I've done before, and it
yeah,
and it works really well. Yeah.
yeah,
Now, fear is with us all the time. I kind of think that fear is like a companion. It's always going to give us
mm,
feedback. It's going to tell us
yeah.
what's happening, right? But for a lot of people, fear is a negative thing.
Mhm.
So why is it that even often that we know what we need to do, but we find ourselves stuck in that fear loop and sabotaging ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. In and of itself, you don't want to get rid of fear. You don't want to get rid of anxiety. Those are warning signals, and they're very important. Just like you don't want to get rid of the smoke detector in your home. Maybe it doesn't need to be as loud as when you burn the toast, or maybe as sensitive as when you burn the toast. But in terms of fear and anxiety, yeah, maybe the volume knob got turned all the way up to 10 because of the experiences you've had in life, and what you practice, you get better at, just like learning the piano or the violin or dance or martial arts or learning to walk as a kid. What you practice, you get better at. What if you're practicing fear and anxiety, and the volume knob just keeps getting turned up more and more and more? Well, again, you don't want to get rid of fear, because that's what keeps you from walking down the dark alley at midnight, even
Mm,
though it's a shortcut home. It's what keeps you from, walking out in Alaska and hiking and petting the nice grizzly bear or the rattlesnake out in the desert or something. Fear and anxiety keeps you safe in certain situations, in certain experiences. But you may have trained yourself through real traumatic experiences to have that hypervigilance and that warning signal on level 10, in terms of volume and
mm,
intensity. And you're allowed to turn that volume knob down. And that's where a lot of this work comes in. Whether it's doing a session one-on-one, or a group session over a Zoom class, or a Zoom session one-on-one, or listening to a recording, you're allowed to do that. In and of itself, fear is not bad. Anxiety is not bad. If you've trained yourself, maybe accidentally, consciously, through traumatic experiences in life, to have that hypervigilance and stress, because your subconscious mind's in a hyper mode of intensely trying to protect you and keep you safe. Okay, maybe it's now time to recode all that, reset that, and lower those levels of fear and anxiety to more safer, better levels for you.
yeah. And how do we start to bridge that gap between knowing and actually doing it?
Well, it's different for everybody. I think if you're at this, uh, you know, point of the podcast and you're still listening, there's something, resonates with you. And that's what with a lot of people I work with. It's just maybe spent years trying other things, just kind of like I did, trying other things. And finally, you hear about hypnotherapy or you understand more about it and it resonates with you. It feels comfortable with you. Maybe you try out some recordings on YouTube or someplace and it feels comfortable for you and your nervous system feels like this is the next right move. And yeah, you are able to tap into these healing powers that you have within the subconscious mind. It knows how to heal the cut on a finger and a scrape on you. You don't have to know it's there. It knows what to do. It just may have the instructions that this is important to hold on to tightly and armor yourself because it was unsafe
mm,
maybe a long time ago when you're a child. So it's just time to update the instructions.
yeah, yeah. Now, you do a lot of work with test anxiety and
Hmm.
performance pressure. So why do people often freeze in big moments, even when they're prepared?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a fascinating conversation, maybe even a longer conversation. In terms of things like tests and things, there's um, a certain understanding we get maybe as kids that if you don't do well, you're going to get punished. And instead of a test being a understanding of where you are and how you understand the information that's being taught in that class and where you are in terms of progressing through that material, instead of just being an indicator of where you're at, it's a, well, you better do this or you're going to get punished if you don't do well. And you're going to get your phone taken away, or you can't watch TV anymore. You can't hang out with your friends, and maybe you skip a grade or you have to go to summer school, or if you don't do well in that chemistry class in university, you can take the class over again, and that's a pain and money. And so there's a certain aspect of being punished, and kind of as human beings, a lot of us would rather move away from pain than move towards pleasure. And so we want to avoid pain, and if testing has been taught to us as being potentially painful emotionally because we're going to get yelled at by parents or point teachers or have to go to summer school or something. There's a protected device of wanting to procrastinate and move away from that, away from the fire, that's coming at us. And so there may be other aspects of test taking. The obvious one is in school, whether now it's online or in with laptops, or whether it's a written test with a pencil or a pen. But what about a job interview? Or what about asking somebody out on a date, or that first date? Um, I don't know, meeting the in-laws for the first time, or going up for that promotion
Mm,
against five other people who, these are all forms of tests. So that performance anxiety, and whether someone's giving the speech at the conference, or the actor or the musician doing an audition, we've seen those funny things where the actor goes to the audition and there's 20 other people who look exactly like them, all auditioning for the same role. And so there's this thing of, well, if I don't do well and I don't, do well on this test, I'm going to be punished for it in some way. And my life is going to be less than because of it. And so that's a safety issue. And the warning signals are going to go up. Unfortunately, with the warning signals, you're going to get that. You're going to probably not breathe as well. So there's less oxygen in the brain. You're going to tunnel vision and focus on that threat, because that's great when you're out in Alaska and you turn the corner, there's a bear. You're going to focus on the bear, and then you're going to turn and focus on where you're going to run. But not when you're doing a test, not when you're doing a
mm,
math test or an English test or a history test or something. Trying to get into law school, trying to get into medical school. That's not the time to turn on the stress response to protect yourself. You want to breathe deeply and get that oxygen into your brain, calm the
mm,
nervous system down so you can
mm.
think clearly. And so it's just, I think it's an unfortunate thing of how a lot of us grew up and
Yeah,
our relationship to tests and
yeah,
what it meant to us.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what are the types of people that you work with, or who are your clients that you work with generally?
Generally, I've worked with 8-year-olds who had been struggling with nightmares for 2 years straight every night, or either mom or dad had to lay with them in bed after they wake up screaming in terror. I've worked with 80-year-olds who had been struggling with anxiety for most of their lives, and everybody in between. And so whether you're a PhD or you're a high school student, or you're, a lawyer or a doctor or electrician or a plumber, or it, it's your subconscious mind, and we all have these patterns, and if they're not working for you or they're interfering with life, you're allowed to change them. So it's not only a certain kind of person can do this. Everybody can do this because you're already doing it. You're already programming yourself through the
Yeah.
situations, circumstances, events of your life, and what you hear other people say about you or to you or behind your back or whatever. So you're already being programmed. So all this does is allow you to take control of it.
Mm.
And so whether
And
you're 8 years old, you're 18, you're 80, and it works.
yeah. People have gone through and carried, emotional pain and trauma for years, right? And what does it actually look like when they release that at the subconscious level?
It's utter and total relief. It's
Mm,
freedom. It's ease. It's peace. It's
mm,
like if you've ever like gone out backpacking, if you ever had that experience, you're carrying this 25, 30 pound backpack with the tent and your food and all that stuff. And you hike for 6, 7 hours way back into the forest, and you finally take off that. Just becomes a part of you. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun. It's hard. And when you get to the campsite or where you're going to spend the night, you take off that backpack and you just drop it. It's like, oh, you don't need to know what's in the backpack. Just drop the backpack, and that relief and that freedom and that ease of that that's what it is. Drop the bowling ball. You don't have to know where the bowling ball came from or what the bowling ball is made of. Drop the bowling ball.
mm,
And that oftentimes is it for people. There may be
yeah,
other deeper healing work that needs to be done, but generally I see people 3 or 4 or 5 times. That's about it.
yeah, yeah. What would you say to someone who's listening who feels like they're tired of everything and nothing works?
Yeah, that's frustrating. And it's there's this kind of get to a certain sense of hopelessness. And I want people to know it's like you have the power to change that. And I know it's been hopeless and it feels that way, but because of your powerful subconscious mind, you're allowed to change those instructions. And there may be some deeper healing work because the frustration may come from not really understanding what the core issue is. You've been working on a problem and then another problem, but you haven't been working on the problem because it's been behind that veil of the unconscious part of mind, maybe through protection or safety, or maybe just because it happened when you're 5 or 6 years old.
Mm,
You know what the problem is because, I mean, not to say it was your fault, but you're the one who's creating it. You're creating the procrastination or the anxiety or the anger or the resentment or the fear. Again, it's not to say it was your fault or should have happened, it wasn't fair, but you're the one creating it. So that means you can change it to something else. You
yeah,
can create the healing because you know what the problem is. And even if somebody has dealt with some like chronic anxiety, I'm going to guess they're not anxious all the time. There are times when they find peace. Maybe it's just watching their favorite TV show or just that peace at the end of the day when everybody's asleep or they're on their own. Or the subconscious mind knows when to turn it on and when to turn it off. Right. So it knows what the problem is then, and it knows what's
yeah,
triggering it. All right. So there we go.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. People who are listening to this may want to get in touch with you or
Yeah. Yeah.
know more about you. How did they do that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Something about what we've talked about today. I know we've gone over a bunch of amazing little topics, and maybe there's more questions now than answers. I'm happy to talk with people, like do a consultation call over the phone or Zoom. I do most of my work over Zoom, so if something we talked about resonated with you, maybe you're noticing patterns you can't break or you feel stuck or you just know there's more to the healing you're looking for, uh, you know, you can come to releasethepast.com. There's craigmeriwether.com, but I know Meriwether is spelled a lot of different ways. So if you go to releasethepast.com, there's actually a free ebook there called Power Behind Your Beliefs that walks you through a lot of what we talked about today in a little more detail about subconscious mind programming. And if you want to go deeper and do this deep healing work on the subconscious level, again, I'm happy to talk with people about it over the phone or a Zoom call or what, again, I do most of my work over Zoom, work with people around the country and around the world because you're doing the work and people feel so comfortable and relaxed in their own homes. When the work's over, you're at home.
Yeah.
So over the years, I've been doing more and more of that online work. So yeah, releasethepast.com. And if you're interested, I'm happy to talk with you.
Awesome. We'll put those links into the show notes, but also there'll be a page on the Champion Mindset Collective website dedicated to this episode. So you'll have all the information on there. There'll be all the videos, the article, and a practical guide that you can download for free and take that away with you. So there you got your ebook as well as a practical guide with everything we've discussed. That's going to give you some practical reflection points and also some practical steps that you can take to make changes in your life. Right, now we're at the quick fire round. So we have 6 very quick fire questions. So you can answer these in a single word or a short sentence. Our first question is, how do you define success and has that definition evolved for you over time?
Yes, it's definitely evolved over time, and it's more of just being comfortable with where you are in life. And it's not riches, it's not your bank account, it's that you feel comfortable with yourself.
Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
Oh boy, that would probably have to be uh, my wife. I know that sounds kind of cliched, but the amount of hard work she does and the stuff she's gone through and how she's changed and created healing in her life has really been inspiring to me. been together for about 40 years now, and she continues to inspire me with all her moving towards her hopes and dreams.
That's awesome. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
Well, certainly what something I believe is what you practice, you get better at. And some people may think it's more nature or nurture or something like that, but I think what you practice, you get better at. And that's, of course, great if you're learning martial arts, not so great if you're practicing fear and anxiety. So a lot of this work is also can be helped to improve who you want to be by practicing something new.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
You're not broken, and you are allowed to create the healing change you're looking for.
What is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
That you have the ability to create the change. Yeah, there may be some deeper healing work that needs to happen, but if you're struggling with some fear, anxiety, or that you feel you're broken and can't be fixed, that's not true. And you're allowed to create the healing change you're looking for.
And the last question is, what does it mean to you to be a champion and have a champion mindset?
Is feeling grounded and centered in your own self as who you are. And again, not so much the wealth and the riches, but in that who you are as a person, that you feel strong, empowered, and comfortable with who you are. That's being a champion.
Thank you, Craig. I've loved this
Yeah, Anthony.
conversation. So I think there's so much more that we can unpack.
Right.
I think it might be good to do like a series of webinars and actually
Sure.
invite you back and do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love
Now,
that.
yeah. Now, the biggest takeaway I had was that, always that we're always practicing something, right? And
Right.
whether it's fear, it's anxiety, it's confidence, calm, or peace. But if we can learn to practice peace, everything starts to shift. This conversation is powerful. It's a reminder that we're not broken. Sometimes we're just running old patterns and those scripts inside that no longer are serving us. They're just something that's an old story that we keep replaying over and over again. As you said before, like the movie, we keep playing that movie, and we've got to let it sort of dim out. So, Craig, thank you so much for your time and joining us and sharing your wisdom with us. To everyone listening, if this episode has spoken to you, please subscribe. When you subscribe, it actually gets it out to the wider world. The algorithms help move it. It's surprising how many people listen to these episodes but don't subscribe. So let's help each other and share it with someone who could actually benefit from this. Someone maybe who may be struggling with their own inner script. You'll find all the links and on Craig's works in the show notes and on the website on the dedicated page. So I encourage you to go visit that. And lastly, I just want to say you are worthy and you are loved. Champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.